Yeah. All right. So we don't have committee and we don't have.
No, the microphone is with the television.
All right, so I should face that general direction. All right,
I'm going to start, okay?
go.
All right, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Historic Landmark Preservation Commission meeting. Tonight is September 11. My name is Suzanne Cahill. I'm the Planning Director for the City of Kingston. We are going to start with just a couple of quick announcements. If you have an emergency, we ask that you use the stairs, not the elevator. If you do need assistance, please ask us and we will help you. I do ask that people silence their cell phones. If you do need to have any conversations that are outside of the Landmarks Commission business, we ask that you take them outside of the room. There is a meeting going on in conference room 1, so we ask that you respect that. Conference room 2 is to my right and to the rear of the building. You can use that if you need to have a conversation. Bathrooms are out the door to my right over here, men's to the front of the building, women's to the back. With that, I'm going to turn the meeting over to Mark Grunblatt to introduce the commission members and begin the meeting at 6:33 p.m.
Good evening. My name is Mark Grunblatt. I chair Historic Landmark Preservation Commission. I'm going to ask the commissioners present to introduce themselves. We'll start down with you, Andrea.
Andrea Putes, I'm the architect of the commission.
Robert Tonner, Commissioner.
Kevin McAvoy, Commissioner.
All right. First item on the agenda, has everybody had a chance to review the meetings from August 1st? Are there any corrections or additions that anyone would like to make? All right, then I'll entertain a motion that we adopt the minutes of that meeting as presented.
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second, Andrea.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the roll. Andrea?
Aye.
Robert?
Aye.
Kevin?
Aye.
I also vote yes. All right. Next, we're going to go just a bit out of order. There's one regular application before us, 165 of Beale Street. Is someone here for that?
Yes.
Yes, if you would come forward, please. Do we have a chair? No, okay. We'll need you to identify yourself for the record. Is there a chair there?
No,
All right, we're going to have to ask you to stand unless we
I'm
can.
gonna get a chair.
Thank you, Brian. Please, if you could just give us a quick overview of the project.
Sure. My name is Ronald Thayer, property at 165 Beale Street, and I'd like to install a gazebo on the ridge of the property.
All right. So the gazebo is accessed through the second story of the property?
Oh, thank you. The gazebo would be accessed from the staircase, which is on the second floor, yes.
Okay. Any questions about the proposal from any members of HLPC?
We did bring some samples there for you, if you want to take a look at them, the
Ah, okay,
material
so we
samples,
do have
colors.
Also, there's an architect, there should be an architectural drawing.
Yep, they do have that. And there's a.
Yeah, that we had seen before, and this is the general appearance. Let me pass this down so everyone gets it. Thank you. Thank you. Those were open questions, and thank you for addressing.
So the post, if I could help, the post will be stained in a black stain, which is the car that I just brought you from Home Depot, the circle.
Okay,
The roof is not not a metal roof. It would be the same, it would be the same shingle roof that I have in the house. But if you want a metal roof, you can a metal roof. And the staircase leads directly onto the gazebo. Because it is a ridge, there's around this gazebo, it would be a 42-inch railing. So the staircase leads directly into the gazebo so that you don't fall off the ridge.
got it. And is is any other fencing of any other sort required in that location? Probably not. It's on ground, so.
Yep.
All right. Any additional questions after reviewing the new documentation? All right.
The color of that stain.
Yeah, if you could pass a color sheet back
It's a
to me.
black. It's a black transparent stain.
Here.
Okay,
If anyone passes the Bill Street, it's the same black stain that's currently being used on the
Yeah.
decks.
okay, looks like it's,
The circle board.
yeah,
Yeah.
Valspar darkest night.
Yes.
Okay. All right, then I will entertain a motion that we declare this a type 2 action under the State Environmental Quality Review Act. Thank you, Kevin. Do I hear a second?
Second, Robert.
Hearing no further discussion, I'll call the roll. Andrea?
Aye.
Robert?
Aye.
Kevin?
Aye.
I also vote yes. Right. I hereby move that the commission find as fact that the proposed construction of a gazebo atop the eastern rock escarpment at 165 Beale Street in the Rondout West Rand Historic District, if done according to the plans reviewed at this meeting and according to the procedure stipulated in section 405-26L of the City of Kingston's form-based zoning code, is compatible with the historic character of the district for the following reasons. That the proposed work is to take place atop a bedrock escarpment at the northeastern corner of 165 Beale Street slot, where a two-story frame building with brick foundation stands that dates between 1858 and 1870, and which, according to the 1976 building structure inventory form, is, quote, too simple to be stylistically characterized. That the proposed gazebo shall be built of treated lumber with metal mechanical fasteners atop the poured concrete foundation at grade, with a structure oriented southward toward Wyandotte Creek. That the structure shall be treated and stained with Valspar darkest night color, and the structure shall have a shingle roof in pewter gray. That the Building and Safety Division has already confirmed that the proposed railing meets code if the site is level and the structure is no higher than 30 inches from grade. That any changes or alterations to the plans or work specifically described and outlined in the submitted application will be subject to further review by our commission prior to additional work being carried out. Our commission's approval does not obviate the need for a building permit from the City of Kingston's Building Safety Division or any other required approvals from relevant coordinating agencies. Based on the preceding findings of fact, I move that on this 11th day of September 2024, our commission grant a preservation notice of action to the above referenced applicant for the work as described herein and in his application to the commission, such notice to be subject to the conditions contained in the foregoing motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, Robert. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the roll. Andrea?
Aye.
Robert?
Aye.
Kevin?
Aye.
I also vote in the affirmative. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Good night.
Good night.
You're welcome to stay.
No, thank you very much. I appreciate it all. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're going to double back to the public hearing on the petition to designate the pipeline canopy. All right. Couple of basics for public hearings, those of you who haven't had one in front of us before. There has been a sign-up sheet. Okay. On the table, there were some people who signed up online ahead of time. They'll be going first. And then whoever has signed up on the sign-up sheet here will be asking that these speakers limit them. I'll give the rules on that in just a bit. Are you here for the proponents?
The applicant.
You're the applicant? Okay.
The applicant will give this.
Right.
We said we're going to go with 15-minute, 15-minute presentation.
You submitted the PowerPoint?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so please keep it within the 15 minutes and give us the overview.
Do you want to read the rules for the speakers now, or do you want to wait?
I'm going to wait until after the proponent has spoken to give the rules for the side.
And then just for procedure, will the board have questions? Should we keep the project team up here for questions, or do you want to come back up?
I think we'd ask you to come back up with the end. The important thing to do here is to allow the public a chance to give us their input. All right. That should do for now.
Okay.
Please introduce yourself for the record and give us an overview of your application.
Okay, I am Victoria Polidoro, partner at Rodenhausen Shaw Polidoro, here on behalf of William Gottlieb Management Co. LLC, to request that the HLPC exercise its powers to designate the pipe plan as a landmark pursuant to section 405-26L of the city code. With me tonight are Terry Cohane, architectural historian, Walter Wheeler, architectural historian, Paul Jankovich, architect, and Ben Neidel, attorney at Hacker Murphy LLP. Before we start, I want to note for the board and for the record that the architectural historians each completed their work independently, our own version of a blind test. Neither was aware of the other's review until after they provided their final reports to the client. Both historians came to the same conclusion that we are asking you to tonight, that the pipe plan meets the local criteria for designation as a landmark. I'm now going to turn it over to Terry Cohen.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for being here. Thanks for inviting us to talk. I'm Dr. Terry Cohane. I'm an architectural urban historian, and I work independently. I have over 25 years of experience documenting and evaluating historic resources in the state of New York. For the past 2 months, I have been delving into the history of the pipe plan, and I have been looking on an evaluation to determine whether it would be eligible to be state or national register designation. For the past 50 years, certainly the pipe plan has defined the streetscape of Uptown Kingston. It has created a very distinct sense of place there. And whether you like it or not, whether you love it or hate it, it is entwined in the history of the Stockade District and the history of renewal in Kingston, which is a significant history. So this evening,
I can't hear very well.
speak louder? Okay, sorry.
Why don't you pull the microphone closer to your mouth?
There is no, that's the problem. It's connected there.
All right, I'll do my best to project. How's that? Is that any better?
Much better.
Yeah.
Thanks. So this evening, I will argue that the pipe plan is significant as a novel preservation-based approach to urban renewal, and that its history is entwined with that of the Stockade District and of the Historic Landmarks Preservation Commission itself, and that its association with the American Bicentennial Celebration and notable local architect John Pike lend it additional significance. I think everyone here is familiar with the pipe plan, so while I will provide an overview of its general history, I really want to emphasize our arguments for its historic significance. So if you can switch to the next slide, please. The pipe plan is a structure within and physically attached to the Stockade Historic District, which was designated in 1975 as a local, state, and national historic district. In fact, the Pike Plan was designed, constructed, and completed at the very same time that the Stockade District was being surveyed and designated. And the Pike Plan represents the culmination of a major urban renewal plan for Kingston's historic Uptown Central Business District that began with a comprehensive development plan of 1961 over the course of an eventful decade and a half, during which time a backlash to urban renewal and modernism, first the American Preservation Movement, a modernist plan for pedestrian mall on Wall and North Front Streets was transformed into a colonial revival semi-mall intended to evoke and really to reflect Uptown Kingston's illustrious history. Next slide, please. So in the 1960s, New York State was second only to Pennsylvania in the amount of urban renewal projects intended to reshape its urban centers. And this often took the form of bulldozers knocking down neighborhoods, as people have seen in other neighborhoods here in Kingston. In 1964, when Kingston's Urban Renewal Agency was formed, it commissioned planning and urban renewal consultants Raymond and May to come up with a plan for the revitalization of Uptown's historic shopping center in order to compete with the suburban malls that were cropping up outside of the city. And so while there was never a plan to demolish Uptown, there were plans to demolish selectively a number of historic buildings, which, because of what happened after 1966, were not demolished. And so if you look on the right-hand side, this is actually a vision of Uptown's North Front Street looking from Green Street. And so that was the vision, the modernist vision for what Uptown would look like. So I ask you to change the next slide, please. There was a very specific plan to create a pedestrian mall on Wall Street and North Front Street. And this was a very modernist plan that was proposed in 1965 when the Uptown Renewal Project was officially announced. And so this concept was in line with what was happening in other cities in the country during this period when suburban sprawl was starting to happen and people, downtown business districts were losing business. And so the intention was to draw people into town. So one of the many plans was Raymond and May's pedestrianized North Front Street and Wall Street. And this was again proposed in 1961 on the left, and the refinement is on the right. The second half of the 20th century, two events or two philosophies, often seen in opposition, really had the greatest impacts on urban environments and urban life. And those are urban renewal and the preservation movement. And in 1966, next slide, please. The year after this modernist plan was a watershed year in the preservation movement, both locally and nationally. Penn Station was in the final stages of being knocked down. Preservation laws are being enacted around the country. And in the wake of changing attitudes towards cultural resources and towards renewal, when people started to see what renewal was doing to downtowns, the Uptown Renewal Plan changed significantly. The local authorities asked for it to be stopped. They asked for a pause to reconsider it. And literally 3 weeks later, the Kingston Historic Landmarks Preservation Commission was formed in August of 1966. 2 months later, in October of 1966, the first ever National Historic Preservation Act was enacted. And so the development of the Pike Plan is still embryonic at this stage, but it's really a reaction to these two major themes. Next slide. So 3 years after its establishment, the commissioner, Fred Johnson, head of the Kingston Historic Landmarks Preservation Commission, worked to promote a new vision for what Uptown would look like. And it was to be a semi-mall instead of a full mall. So instead of taking over the whole street, it would just enlarge the sidewalks and be covered. And he did this in collaboration with the local artist, John Pike, and with the support of the Kingston Uptown Businessmen's Association. And Johnson believed that the Pike Plan was, in his words, a restoration, that this was an effort to enhance the historic nature of the district. And it did so. Oh, so this is the historic condition of Uptown with the awnings. And then what Pike was planning was sort of a physical, structural interpretation of those awnings. Next slide. What the Pike Plan did was strip all of the historic modern signage that businesses had been putting in to try to attract new customers. And if you can see on the right, what it looked like as it was being constructed, all their signs had been removed. And that's a view of Wall Street. And so what was done over the course so starting in 1969, when this new vision was proposed, Pike worked with local architect Albert Milliken to try to make it real. And so over the next few years, it was designed, it was put out to bid, and then in 1974 and 75, it was constructed. Next slide, please. And so again, as I said, as the Pike plan was being constructed, the Stockade District was in the process of being surveyed and designated. So they really need to be understood together. Both were seen at the time, as preservation thought at the time, both were seen as ways of celebrating and emphasizing Uptown's history. And so then we can talk about significance. Every cultural resource reflects its time. And I think if we start to evaluate resources that are closer to our own time, sometimes it's hard to be objective. We think that they're not old enough, not historic enough. I think since fixed in our mind, especially somewhere like Kingston, where we have the actual the colonial revival seems like a pale imitation. But the history is actually very significant here, and a significant aspect of this is its integrity. So an important aspect of significance is integrity. And despite poor neglect, despite poor maintenance, despite a very ham-fisted renovation that was done about a decade ago, they're actually retaining, these structures actually retain a fair amount of integrity. So there was a document that was put together by someone that was comparing side by side the changes over time. And if you look at it, the columns, John Pike designed detailed specific columns for each building depending on the building style. And those are all still there for the most part, with very few exceptions. The balustrades were lost, which is a shame. But when you are walking under these canopies, the intent, the design intent, the history, the materiality is still legible. And so to wrap up my portion of this, the pedestrian experience I would submit is really still very much reflective of the period of its construction. In 2016, when the Stockade District nomination was updated, next slide. The state declined to evaluate the Pike plan at that time because for National Register purposes of resource needs to be 50 years old or older, unless it's exceptionally significant. And so they declined to evaluate it. And so I was tasked with evaluating it. And I've submitted a request for evaluation to the SHPO, to the State Historic Preservation Office, because I consider that the Pike plan should be considered a contributing resource to the Stockade National Register Historic District, not an individual resource, a contributing resource to the district. But we're here to talk about its significance locally. And so my colleague, Mr. Walter Wheeler, has prepared a Victoria set of parallel report in which he evaluates the plan against the local criteria. And though our reports were prepared blind, neither of us was aware of the efforts. We both agreed that the plan is likely to meet local, state, and national criteria. Thanks.
Thanks for that background. My name is Walter Wheeler, and I'm the senior architectural historian at Harkin Archaeological Associates, a cultural resource management firm. I've been there for 25 years, but have done assessments of National Register eligibility on buildings going back more than 40 years, including very large scale projects throughout New York State and Northeast, probably hundreds of thousands of buildings. I've also been, until this past January, was the chair of the city of Troy, where I live, Historical Review Commission, in a role that I had served for 11 years. My task today is simply, as I said, to present an assessment of the eligibility under the local criteria. And I find that the Pike plan, the canopies and all other aspects of it, which go with it, the sidewalks, bits of it, meets two of the criteria for listing as a local landmark. The first of these is that it exemplifies or reflects the broad cultural, political, economic or social history of the nation, state, or country. And the second, it is identified with historic personages or with important events in national, state, or local history. Now, the aspects of it, the aspects of it which make it eligible for those are intertwined, and I'll talk about them together. The PIPE plan qualifies for its association under both criteria for its association with the urban renewal program and the history of the community response to that program as its consequences became more well known. The city of Kingston, its response to the urban renewal program was one of the more progressive responses and actually informed some of the other progressive responses throughout the United States. And I would note particularly that in Salem, Massachusetts, which became much more famous because it had some nationally well-known advocates, including Adam Hughes Huxtable. The PIPE plan also qualifies at a local level for its association with John Pike, prominent watercolor artist who lived in Ulster County, as well as its association with the urban renewal program. And the colonial design, which was alluded to by the PIPE plan, it reflects the aesthetic attitudes that were in the air during the years immediately preceding the bicentennial. And so it has a very direct, its design has a direct relationship to the celebration of the bicentennial. And in those two respects, the PIPE plan, I would say, is locally eligible. I will say in terms of an argument that might indicate that it may not achieve eligibility because components of it are less than 50 years old. I would note that in 2017, I did a National Register nomination for the city of Utica, Genesee Street Historic District. Significant component in terms of area, about 50% of the historic district were urban renewal associated projects, and those were at that time only 45 years old. And it's an indication of how important, in terms of the national conversation and in terms of the perception of the National Register, how important that movement is, that they did not dissuade me. In fact, it encouraged the inclusion of all those components because they feel that they are of such national consequence that they don't, in fact, require them to be 50 years old. And so the newest aspects of the PIPE plan, I think, were finished in 1975, was it? So they were 50 years old next year. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Mr. Will, who's next?
No, that's it.
That's it. Thank you kindly. All right. And for folks who have signed up, there's some basic guidelines. Let me read them off to you. First, you needed to sign in. I've got 7 names, and I'll call you in order. Please remember to introduce yourself, state your name and your residence. If you're speaking for an organization, please identify the organization. Please speak clearly, speak up, and at a pace that the microphone across this table can pick up as best you can. This will help us hear your comments, and if anyone listening in on the live stream or we have a question later and go back to the recording, that will be very helpful. I'd ask you to limit yourself to 3 minutes. That ensures everyone who wants to speak has the opportunity. Public hearings are for the HLPC to receive public comment, both oral and written, regarding the petition before the city of Kingston. So try and focus in on the proposal as it was presented. please avoid repetition. If you agree with someone who's already spoken, you can save time and your voice by just saying so. So please be assured that your agreement will be noted as a more broadly held view. We do pay attention to that. If you have any documentary information that you want us to consider in addition to your spoken comments, please give us the comments in writing as well. And please be courteous to all fellow citizens and to the members of the commission. Speak to the issues. All comments should be addressed to us and not to other persons in the audience. There's not going to be any debate or questioning as a part of this hearing. Please don't interrupt or engage in personal attacks, no booing, no catcalling. Discourteous behavior will not be tolerated and could result in your being, in us having to kick you out of the meeting. Thank you for your cooperation. Thank you for being here. And the first name I have on my list is Robert Hanson Stern.
I arrived late, so I'm not on that list, and I was told that there was no speaking.
Yeah.
The no speaking applied to the gazebo application.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Robert Hanson Stern. I own 334 Wall Street, Kingston, New York, and I am a photographer. I've been incorporated for 30 years and paying taxes in Kingston for 35, 40 years. Now, one question I have for the panel first. I couldn't get on the site. Who is the petitioner for this? Who is doing the petition?
The submitted petition, it was a petition signed by more than 10 people that reside in the city of Kingston.
Residents?
Yes.
Okay. And so are these people here residents, the ones who, because they did not state their residency, the ones who just gave us?
They are representatives of the group that organized the petition.
So they were paid by that group?
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
We're not going to debate, so.
So I'm here 30 years. I've been on the corner of Wall and North End and have seen a lot of stuff go on. And basically, my premise is, and as a photographer, I really believe in history of buildings and beauty and how you should have a consistent uptown area. But that can be done in many ways, with awnings or whatever. I mean, you've been to Spain and you see the awnings with fruit out in front of the place in the cafe. It could be done in different ways. And the canopy was put up in 1970, which is 50 years ago. And it was put up improperly. They built my side of the street well. They did the other side of the street not quite as well, but they did nice copper on either end. And they did going down Front Street poorly, very poor construction. So we had to come back in 2010 and do it again. So they repaired it again and changed the look of the whole thing. They took the copper off my building. They put, lighting down the street and,
30 seconds.
30 seconds left? Or,
Left.
well,
3 minutes.
it's quite a long time. So,
It's 3 minutes to speak. They were presenting.
okay, so what happens is they reconstruct it. And then they do a poor job doing that. Then they get lawsuit. They have a lawsuit and they fail the city fails to apply for the lawsuit in time, and they don't get the money there. So now we've had the building, we've had this canopy for how long? And they haven't maintained it. The city has not maintained it. So what I'm saying is, why put a facelift on a patient that had clogged arteries? Can the city maintain it? Again, they've already failed doing that. We had a perfectly good parking lot across the street that they couldn't maintain and so forth. So let's go there. Why are we here now worried about a canopy and so forth, trying to make it historical? Because it's falling down. It's not all of a sudden.
Please wrap up as quickly as you can.
It's not all of a sudden that we decided that this is such a beautiful historical site that we needed.
Thank you. Next up, Carol Amper.
Amber from 318 Wall Street. And I have owned the building since 2010. I recently put a lot of time and effort into painting my building. And rather than go on to speak about what some of the other people will talk about, I brought photographs that I took today just to illustrate how I feel about this designation of the Pike Plan, becoming historic. This is my building, and I have my building and I have the block. This is my building. It was a pink. I put a lot of effort into bringing it to historic colors, highlighting the historic accents of my building, which is quite beautiful. And as you can see, the canopy, which is in terrible disrepair, it's not even connected properly to my building. The canopy obscures, and I feel that it really compromises the historic integrity of the building. And I don't think there's, much historic merit. It is so incongruous with the buildings that are behind it, and it hides them. And what a shame, because we have such beautiful buildings on Wall Street and on North Front. And instead of hiding them, we should be highlighting them with lighting, or however, this committee deems that to be the best way, but certainly not hiding it.
May we keep those?
Yeah.
Great,
Yeah.
thank you. Anything further you'd like to highlight and point out for us?
Well, if you look at the whole street, when I painted my building, I sort of tried to bring together a little bit the different colors of the buildings. The canopy being on so many different levels.
30 seconds.
30 seconds. It really has nothing to do with the historic buildings that are behind it. And it's a new construction, as Robert said. So I let my photographs speak for me. But I strongly urge the committee to vote against this.
Thank you. All right, next up, Jonathan Hoyt.
I have 3 minutes to speak to an issue that will, if this is passed, will reduce the average building value in the affected area by $350,000. And I have 3 minutes.
Do the best you can.
Amazing.
We we have a lot of folks who are trying to get through this.
Yeah.
And my request then would be if you wish to submit it in writing later,
Thank you.
that would be wonderful.
Appreciate it. John, how many people knew John Pike? How many people in the course of their investigations and studies spoke to Tall Ted from Lochner Engineering, who was a supervising engineer when the original so-called Pike plant was dismantled and replaced by the Uptown Canopy, which is there now? How many people spoke to Charlie Winters, who was the head carpenter for the project? I'm 326 Wall Street. My name is John Hoyt. I'm an attorney, have an MBA, taught marketing in the MBA program at Marist College. I've studied urban land economics. I knew the area very well before the original so-called Pike plant was built. The shanty stores, Sam's Swap Shop, all of them, London's were clients of mine. Ann and Al Abrams were clients of mine. Robert and Elmore Yalom knew them well. Lynn's, Florsheim Shoes, knew all of them. To a person, they said that they were duped into this original Pike plant by a sales pitch from Urban Renewal that this was going to be the salvation of retail in Uptown. And to a person, after time had passed, they were saying they were duped into it, that it was a failure from day one, and ultimately, Abrams, Yalom's, London's went over to them all. Knew them all, they were my friends, I knew the whole story. Anybody know John Pike? Besides me? Nobody. Here is, I don't know if you got copies of this. Everyone get copies of these?
Yeah.
There's 311 Wall Street. Here, John Pike's renditions of what it should look like. John Pike had very little to do with the original in terms of design and has nothing to do with what is there now.
Can I use my time?
Yes, so if you have additional info you want to give us, please do it in writing. Thank you.
She's yielding time to you.
She's giving her my she's giving me her.
Yes.
Okay, that's fine.
All right, so I'll call you back up when we reach time.
Okay, would you like those?
Yes, I
Yeah, if that
appreciate
doesn't
it.
tell the story, then.
So you've got 3 more minutes.
I've been here
You want
since
me to-
before any.
So, okay,
Just keep on going.
keep on going. I think that may be simpler for us.
And look at the circumstances that I was extremely familiar with Uptown and knew John Pike. John Pike was not Uptown Kingston. John Pike was Woodstock. You know where they went on a nice sunny day in the summer? A lot of the artists, including John Pike, Ruth Ann introduced me to him. Swimlinks. 100-foot by 50-foot, 10-foot deep swimming pool. How did I know? I was a lifeguard. I told some of the artists there, the bicentennial will be coming in the early 70s. And only one Dan Gottschalk really took my word and did something bicentennial. He did a lot of things. They sold very well at the bicentennial. This had nothing to do with bicentennial other than we're going to run a parade up Wall Street. So if you don't put your trash out, we'd appreciate it. It'll look nicer for the bicentennial. There's nothing bicentennial about any of this. And as far as the culture and the fabric of Uptown, it's right there. This is the culture and the fabric. And when I came in, and I've been there forever, too long, I was hoping to fly under the radar and drift off into the sunset, but it didn't happen apparently. But Stanley Lennon came over and said to me, John, welcome to the neighborhood, but I'm sorry to see an office use coming into the neighborhood. I was hoping it would be retail and that you'd be able to bring in more shoppers. I said, you know something? Urban land economics. If retail is robust, office use cannot compete. Here we are today, we have 3 real estate offices on Wall Street, an attorney's office, myself, of course, mortgage broker down the street, newspaper publisher. So it's already turned the tide and proof positive that this did not work. And in other municipalities, it's been taken down. And there are people that find it convenient to walk their dog on a rainy day. Well, good. If the cost of renovating the pipe plant was going to be paid through a user fee, if we could attract 400 people a day, other than building owners, shop owners, and employees, if we could get 400 a day at $5 a piece for a day pass, it would be $2,000 a day, and that would be $730,000 a year. Unfortunately, the debt service on $10 million to renovate it is $802,000 a year. So, doesn't work.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bad idea from the start, and it got worse.
Next up, John Perry.
I have some copies of some letterheads that were drafted, one by an investigation for the determination of what will soon to become removal of the pipeline commission. The other letter is the letter from the commission that's requested the actual name of the pipeline be changed to the uptown plan. That was presented to the city of Kingston, and I'll refer back to that in a second. So yes, my name is John Perry. I own 33 North Front Street, and I was the last sworn pipeline chairman. During that process, we were given the opportunity to see a transformation from what was once called the pipe plan, which is now called the uptown county. So being that 1975 when it was drafted, which by the way, renewal was one of the worst time periods in this world, in this country, I would say. So anything we've done back then, we should be looking at as historical. We should be looking at it as a disaster. Including this. Moving forward, so the removal of the pipe plan in 2011 and the renovations of it also designated no longer historical because it's only 13 years old. And completion was in 76, I believe, so that's still 48, 49 years old, so it's not 50, which we stated earlier. So the as far as the buildings and designations, so the buildings were, if it was true that these actual, when it was done in 1975 and Uptown Kingston was designated historical, the buildings were already over 100 years old. They were built in 18 change. Hence the fact that that's why they were given historical values. Has nothing to do with the pipe plant being built the year after. So let's just throw that one out. So urban renewal, 1970s to the 80s. What's the one thing that was built in 1970s and 80s? Malls? I don't know one mall that designated historical. Why is a structure that was built at that time to resemble a mall, to give us a structure to help us be a mall uptown? So that one's out there. My building personally, 31 through 35, is London's. You saw photos of it. That currently is probably the most disgusting piece of uptown community currently, based on the pipe plan. The pipe plan was built, and then they actually put aluminum siding. I don't think aluminum siding is considered historical either, by the way. But they did that during the same time period, 1975. So let's talk about that. Why does that now consider it to be historical. Is my siding historical? Absolutely not. The destruction that the canopy did to these buildings is horrific. It needs to be taken down. I'm not even going to go into that. But at this point in time, I truly feel the opportunities here to not only designate it not historical, but let's take it down and let's do the right thing with the true gems, the historical buildings.
Thank you.
And I have controversial. And that was one of the things. 2011, there was a grant that was established by the federal government. That grant would not be imposed without New York State establishing the fact that Pikeland was not historical.
Thank you. Next up, Ken Abateo.
Thank you. My name is Kevin Abateo. My wife and I own a building at 334 Wall Street, and we also run a business there. We've been there since 2019, and we haven't made a final decision on whether keeping or removal of the canopy should be. However, as long as there's no cost to me or the building owners of any type, whether it's in maintaining the building, I mean, the canopies, or fixing up the facades of the buildings, I think that should all be taken care of by Kingston's taxes. And I say that not because it should raise any problems for people thinking that, oh, the taxpayers of Kingston should have to bear that burden. No, we're already bearing that burden. For example, my approximate tax burden in 2005 was about $5,500, something. It is currently $19,000. And for the last 10 or 15 years, it's been $10,000 more, at least, and all of the others too, than what we originally, were paying. So I say, that as far as taxes and money go, it's there, we're paying it. If it's being used for some other programs unrelated to this, let's get it back, because I know there's a lot of programs. I could mention a few, but this is not the time. Now, regarding, some people say the buildings, the canopies are ugly, they block visibility, and they last historical significance. Historical significance is, it relates to a period of time, and it was a response to something that was going on. In the 50s, 60s, and 70s, the canopies were ripping apart downtown districts. The idea that many districts and towns around the country came up with is, let's put up canopies and we'll make a safe walking and comfortable walking environment for people so that we'll compete with the malls and the stores will stay. It didn't work out, okay? The stores still went, as John Point mentioned, and understanding this. Okay, so anyway, regarding are they attractive? Maybe not, but a little bit of architectural expertise and a paint job and something, they'll look beautiful again. But the most important thing, I think, of all is that most of the towns and cities around the country that had the canopies, that put up canopies, took them down. We're the only ones practically, especially in the Northeast region, that still has it. People remember that. When my customers, which a lot of people, I only see 2 people here that are actually my customers, so this is really something. But my customers, when they tell me about Kingston, oh, you got a beautiful town, I say, what's your most memorable thing? It's not the Senate House, it's not the Old Dutch Church, it's the canopy. They say, oh, boy, you got canopy, oh, it's so beautiful. And regarding visibility, look, we have LED lights, 2 or 3
or not 2 or 3, let's say 20 LED lights will not take up more energy than 3 or 4 of the old 100-watt light bulbs. I mean, LED energy is not cheap, but the LEDs are, and that's really all that's necessary for visibility. And I could go on, but I think it comes.
Yes, it is, if you want to submit something in writing.
I did already, you have my whole thing.
Thank you kindly.
Thank you.
Right. Next up, Dominic Vanacore.
Here we go again. So firstly, we are talking about the speaker store. Okay, so the SHPO dean in 2009, when we started this first, which I'm going to call building materials laundering scheme, basically said it's a non-contributing architectural element in the historic district. The only thing they would truly support is complete demolition and restoration of the building. So now they took the pipe plan down when they weren't supposed to, because according to SHPO, if it came off the building for any reason, whether it got hit by lightning, it would not be allowed to be reattached. Okay, so they did take it down because somehow asbestos appeared, which we already knew that was there because I was on the pipe plan commission through the whole thing. And we had overrun that they basically dismantled the whole thing and built, which is now the uptown canopy, which is now very big clear. The pipe plan does not exist anymore. If anybody ever saw pictures of it, it doesn't exist. The magical look of it is not there. And if you really looked at that magical look closely, it was basically a drop for a movie because it was T111, industrial lighting. There was nothing. With my building is the building that you're looking at right now, a cornerstone, majestic building that the pipe plan totally takes its majesty. When you're under that overhang, you can't see my building at all, unless I go across the street. Now, when they cut the holes in it to put the skylights that were supposed to illuminate the storefronts, there were holes in the top of it, and you stood in front of my building and you actually could see the majesty of the building. So basically what it is a drop ceiling on the outside of the buildings. It was an urban renewal mistake, and it should not be there. We are the highest tax commercial district in the state of New York. We are one of the most historic neighborhoods in the state of New York. That part of Uptown Kingston is Victorian. It's not colonial, so that's another thing that should be relevant in deeming it historic, is that it has no relevance to the buildings that it's defacing. Okay? I have my businesses in that building. I live in that building. I shovel the snow in front of that building. There's nothing about that overhang protects my personal building. Okay? So, my answer to this is that the pipe plan is gone. Okay, so maybe that might somehow be construed as some kind of relevance to the historic, but now we have a new structure that's standing in its place. So now are we making concepts historic, or are we actually having structure be historic? If you went around the block, or if you knocked a building down that's not in our historic district and built a new building there that replicated it somehow, does that building become historic? I mean, so I guess I will submit the other thing that I would say, because we also, the city paid $150,000 to have Norman Mintz, who is urban renewal, restored neighborhoods all over the state of New York, and he explained to us, because at that time I didn't realize how bad the pipe plan was for me running a business. And he explained that these buildings were designed and redesigned between the 1890s and the 1930s to be ornate on top and glass on the bottom. So the ornate brought your eye down to the storefront. What the pipe plan does is it frames like a picture, the ornate part. And when people say that the pipe plan makes Uptown Kingston charming, Uptown Kingston makes the pipe plan. Because the pipe plan, if you look at it piece by piece, there's nothing charming about it. Okay? Thank you very much. Good luck to us all. on that whole presentation, no offense to anybody, because I know you guys are being paid to be here. I mean, you guys are historians, you gotta really, it should be a matter of something, that's all I can say.
Joanne Steele is next.
I came to Kingston about 40 years ago. And before I came here, I was looking through postcards. Remember postcards? Anyway, the one that I really liked was an evening picture of uptown Kingston with the pipe plant in existence. And I thought it looked so darn charming. And also the story. I said, wow, look at that. The lights, and I said, you could walk and it get rain on it, so forth. And I was totally charmed by seeing that postcard with a picture of uptown Kingston with the pipe plant. What can I tell you, you know? I like it a lot. I like the way it looks. I don't know about then, and now that I don't, that distinction I can't make. But, I just think it's damn charming. Yeah, and I love it.
Thank you, and thank you for your presence. Okay. Richard Jose Ortiz is up next.
Thank you. You said my name right, which is rare.
I do what I can.
If we could go back, I am the executive director of the Hudson Valley KCD2 Plus Community Center, which is at 300 Wall Street. And, you know, I know there is strong feeling about the pipe plan. I am born and raised in this area. I vaguely remember when this was initially put up, but certainly remember shopping in this area with my family soon after it went up. And I also am the former director of programs and interpretation for historic Huguenot Street. So I'm familiar with this concept of history and what is historic, and how you interpret things. And certainly, I know at historic Huguenot Street, we never look back at the original date of the building and interpret it from there, because buildings and landscapes change over time, and you consider all of that. My main concern is with the immediate. Some of you may have noticed that last week, the city without notice arrived and put a very crude structure on shoring up our canopy or awning in front of our building. No notice was given to us, no regard for the structure, no regard, frankly, for the use of our building. And immediately after this, the city engineer wrote in an email to inform me that the city plans to demolish the awning attached to our building in the near future. There's been no discussion of, you know, how that impacts the overall discussion right now. No communication with us about how the city will provide for the fact that our building is going to have a very noticeable scar when that is removed. It also occurs to me in the context of this discussion that this potentially will occur in a way that short circuits the ability to have this discussion and consider whether or not these are historic and should be designated as such. So I'm deeply concerned that the process is going to be kind of short-circuited or the end run around process here. They have no particular stake in whether or not these remain or these go. I would just like to see it done in a way that that adheres to process and that there is good communication with those of us who have businesses and own property here, so that we can move forward in a way that ends up with the street being better than what it is today. Thank you.
And thank you. Next up, Brian Cafferty.
have my comments written down. So. I'm a native, grew up here. I have so loathed and disliked this structure for as long as I can remember. Largely because it was in fact an urban renewal project. And the term urban renewal, for anybody who's serious about historic preservation, which I know all of you are, and thank you for what you do, it just should strike fear in the hearts of anybody who's seriously committed to historic preservation. Nothing, and I mean nothing good, came from that period. And this is no exception. This structure, which was grafted onto these buildings with the notion that somehow or another it was going to be the savior. We should all be, you listen to the petitioners, that we should be grateful that the Pike Plan somehow or another saved these buildings. You know, so the alternative was tear them down or graft a Disneyland arcade to it that has no reference whatsoever to the vernacular architecture of the area. If you look at their own submission, you see a picture of what it looked like and what it looked like after the Pike Plan was built. And you can see how diminished it made. And it's literally, I say to you that it's literally co-opted the sense of place. People talk about it, all they talk about is the Pike Plan. The Pike Plan did not create the sense of place in Uptown. The community, the architecture, the streetscape, what the history of what happened there did, not the Pike Plan. It is offensive to me when people say to me that is the Pike Plan creates the sense of space. I mean, honestly, it has co-opted it and it's damaged it, it's degraded it. And when all the other communities, almost all of them, have removed these things, what do? After we thought so highly of it, we let it rot into the ground. We double down and spend $3.5 million rebuilding it. 13 years later, it needs to be torn down again. I'm reminded of the saying, doing something over and over again and expecting a different result is the very definition of insanity. It is literally insane to argue that this is a historic structure. It doesn't even bear any resemblance whatsoever. All kinds of games have been played about restoration and replacement. I went around. But the truth of the matter is that that structure that was there, the Pike Plan, was completely removed. The only thing they did was save a few token things that were a part of the structure and put it back, put it back in the structure. Mainly the post. When you look at that structure, what the largest surface area that hits you is the roof line and the cornices, not the supports. So that's all gone. This is not the Pike Plan. This is some additional abomination that we've been suffering for the last 13 years. Sorry for being so fierce about it, but it's time for this thing to go.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to address the commission this evening?
I just say one more. It'll be brief, I'm not gonna get into.
I'd ask that you, Mr. Vandercourt, then give you a couple of extra minutes.
Yeah, I just wanna.
Yeah.
One thing.
Actually, it's only one.
Okay, the one thing that no one has touched on is Public Safety Act, okay? When it was restored in 2011, or taken down and rebuilt, one of the issues was the fire hazard. Okay, so there's no firewalls, there's no any kind of a fire suppression system. So if one of the buildings goes on fire, because some of the buildings, my building is a surface connection, but some of those buildings, it actually goes into the drop ceilings of the inside of the buildings. So if by chance that wooden structure caught fire, we could lose a whole street in uptown Kingston. It's across the street, I watched the fire across the street from my building, from my roof. And that fire, if the fire department, we have an amazing fire department, they contained it quickly. But they used, if they weren't able to contain that, if it was maybe 2 hours later in the evening, because it was still, people were on the street, so people called the fire department quickly. We could have lost the side of North Front Street, and the catastrophe, which could happen because people live in all of the second and third floors of the buildings. And then, not even that, structurally, like they said, they're putting up lolly columns to hold it from falling down. I mean, this is gonna drag this out. How long can the city allow? And what about our insurances? The city's insurance? How is that? The insurance company gonna pay if this falls down on somebody's head? I mean, where is that? We had none of that discussion today. We're gonna talk about something being restored, but what about all of those issues? Because when they restored it, they took away, we talked, it's 99% of the buildings at that time wanted to take it down, 10 stories. So we talked to Albany, prior commissioner in Albany. They said, as long as the city follows the rules, we can't step in now. We have to wait till it's done. If they don't follow the rules, then we can step in and say something. And you know what, one of the phone call we got? Well, Dominic, you know, it's better than it was before. Because they told me that public safety does not supersede existence. And somehow, some way, it did. And now we still have this thing attached to my building. You can't get out of my building without going through the pipeline. A lot of the buildings have dual access. I can't get out of my building with the building lock. So the only way out of my building is through where the pipeline is. So if by chance it was on fire, we could go about it. So that's just another thing that no one's talking about.
Thank you for that.
Thanks for the extra time.
You're welcome. All right.
I have 30 seconds more, please. Because I promise I'll be quick.
Do the best you can, John.
I was there day in and day out. And fortunately, bought a lot of coffee and donuts for the fellows that work in front of my building. I asked for what was a slanted canopy from my building. I asked them to make it flat. All that from Lochner Engineering said, no, the plans call for that's going to be sloped. And the canopy in front of my building is flat. The plans would change. What is in front of my building is all replacement. There's nothing that is beyond 2012, whenever it was installed. So certainly that section is not historic.
Thank you.
And thank you. All right, I think this is last call for addressing the commission. Going once, going twice.
Could I have another 30 seconds?
Just ask you a question. Now, if you guys decide that it is a structure that should be saved, are the public safety requirements going to have to go in? Are they going to have to rebuild it with fire protection?
This will be a question for common council. Our determination is merely a recommendation to the common council. We do not have the final word here, but it is a requirement that before common council makes its decision, that they listen to our recommendation. Right, so we're step one. Further steps are yet to come. So our decision is not final. I'd like to make that clear.
Yeah, don't blame me.
All right. So
None of the petitioners have showed up.
the petitioners have sent their representatives. That's what I'm aware of.
Okay.
Okay, I don't know if anyone here is an actual petitioner. If you are not required. All right. So for for our board, we essentially are going to close the oral portion of this. I know that the city has asked for its own review of the petition, and we're not going to make a decision tonight. So that also gives anyone with an interest in commenting a chance to do so in writing before our next meeting. At that point, we're going to have to compare it to the 4 criteria for local landmark status that are in the code. We're going to need to be formal about that at the time. And I'm presuming we'll get a additional review. I believe all of this will appear on the website as received.
Yes.
So folks here, there will be at least one additional written comment, probably more, that will be posted on the city's website under this particular application. So thank you for paying attention. Thank you for your interest in this application. And I move that we close in-person portion. All right.
Do you want to talk about the meeting date?
I'd like to address that.
Because we have that kind of plays here.
All right. So the addition, there's a concern that our next meeting date, October 3rd, is Rosh Hashanah. That affects me probably most directly. I'll be, but I do know that the final service for my congregation is due to end at 5 o'clock. So I could get here at 6:30 without trouble. And it's just a matter of, Rosh Hashanah, unlike Yom Kippur, is not generally a requirement to be in temple all day. I don't mind doing it. There may be other folks who wish to speak who might. I see your hand.
Well, as to what Dominic was talking about, once your commission makes a recommendation, it's a recommendation, it's not a ruling, that it's a historic. The council decides whether
The
it's
common
historic.
council has the final decision on all landmarks in the city of Kingston.
And Mark, before you close the meeting, can I just say that if it's determined that this should come down and our streetscape recovered and our facades restored, I would just like to make an offer to anybody here that if you don't have an umbrella, I will buy you.
Okay. So I know that you had me in mind when this came up.
Okay.
I've double checked. I can be here. Does that make a difference in whether you still think we should move the meeting to another date? Because I know we're always close to a forum. And I know you will, let's see, you're available on Thursday, but not on a Monday or Wednesday.
Correct.
Okay. So I'm trying to do what I can in my own distractions. How do you feel?
So the holiday ends.
Yeah, Rosh Hashanah, and well, if you're Orthodox, it could continue another day, but for my purposes, it ends at sunset.
And the other members are not going to be available that
Andrea
cannot.
So I think we leave it up to the board, what you guys think.
All right. So, are you the alternate date would be the 7th. It's a Monday. It precludes Andrea's attendance. I'm willing to do what I can do to be here on the 3rd, if that works.
Yeah, I mean, I would like you as the chairman to be able to attend. If you're comfortable with doing that, I mean, I know it's a holiday, so I don't want to infringe on that.
It's kind of you on our final service.
Okay, all right.
I'm actually running the service earlier in the day.
Okay, so, do any other commission members have any concerns with, having the meeting on our regular date, October 3rd then?
No problem.
Robert? Okay.
All right, and I know Nettie is available either day.
I didn't check, we didn't check with Nettie for the 3rd. We checked, we sent out an email about the 7th because that was our alternative date that we were considering.
Okay. For you, Kevin, does it make a difference? You're good either day.
Just Thursday.
Third's better for you. You need to check. I can cover either.
Yeah, it looks like I'm not.
You're not.
Yeah.
Okay, so he,
What about the following week, the following Thursday, the 10th?
I'm good for that.
I'm good for that.
Sure, I'm doing a lot of stuff with the land trust.
Yeah.
Double check if you can.
No, but I have.
Okay.
So it would be 6:30.
No.
It's just a matter of whether the day works.
I think so.
And for you, Robert?
Yeah.
10th works for you?
Yeah.
Yes.
It looks like you're going to the meeting. We do have our consultants to answer questions, and I'm not sure they'll be able to make it to the next date.
Okay, well, let's pick that. And then we can decide whether we need to engage with them while they're here.
Okay.
Give us, so the 10th is a third possibility. Good for two of you. You're checking. It's good for me. We don't know about Nettie.
Nettie would be the only one who don't know that. Everybody else is good here for the 10th?
Yes.
I should check with the land trust.
Can we pull rank, or are you absolutely needed at the land trust on that day?
Well, it depends what's going on.
Okay. We need
This is
to,
an accreditation process. When people for the accreditation process, and the land trust alignment says it's the 10th.
yes.
It's the 10th.
All right, so we're taking a bit of a risk on that. We require 4 members. Okay. All right. Okay, so the 3rd, we would be missing Rob. The 7th, we would be missing Andrea. And the 10th, we might be missing. Okay. So we will have a change no matter what we do. You guys, what date makes a difference for the city and staff?
I mean, we don't want to go, I don't think we want to go beyond that week, the following week, with this, or regular, because it would be a regular meeting. as well.
Right, so we have to post notice to you all.
Right. I'm almost inclined to keep it on the 3rd, and I realize that Robert maybe not be available, but I'm inclined to then just keep it on the regular date.
Okay.
And that's my, I don't know.
He's wondering.
If we have a quorum of individuals that are seated here at the table, then yes, you can do it. You can log in by Zoom.
Right, but
So
you
if we
can't
have
count
Nettie
toward
and
quorum.
everybody else on the 3rd.
Yeah, we
then
did
yes.
that once with you in the city.
Yeah, we have a quorum in the room. You're good to go.
Okay. So we're going to go with the third. Thank you. I wish everyone a happy New Year.
Change, because we had talked about, this is going to change. They want to comment the days in advance, you want to do deadline, because you want to be able to
So that
respond.
first. So we need to.
Make it the Monday. What's the Monday? What is Monday?
Tuesday, the Monday is September 30th, Tuesday.
Let's do September 30th. Okay. All right.
Okay, then I hereby move that we table pending additional review of public commentary and a consultant's report for the commission. The public hearing will be continued until September 30 at 2024 at 2 p.m. to receive additional written comments. Okay? So that's the timetable we're dealing with. I'll hand that back. Thank you. All right, do members of the commission have questions for the proponents or for any particular person who's given comment?
Carrie?
Yeah, you can. Yes, you're not the
If
expert.
it's okay, just take 1 minute at the end to do a wrap up. Appreciate that.
All right. Your question?
Yeah, I just want to confirm. So you said John Piper's an architect,
was the artist. And the architect was Albert Millikan,
right?
and he was also an artist. And he practiced here locally in some of his buildings.
I was just a little confused because
I made Miss
I've
Morgan.
researched it. I've never seen he was an architect. And you said.
I'm Miss
Gotcha.
It's hopefully corrected.
All right. My question would be for Mr. Wheeler. Do Salem or Utica have similar structures?
They do not. The solutions there are different. In Utica is in the instance there, it's actually one of the classic kind of rip it down, service parking lots and put up mega structures. And those are now listed on the register, including the parking lots. I'd like to reiterate that listing on the National Register or listing on the local, as a local landmark, it's not a popularity contest, and it's also not an indication that people approve of the project as it was. It merely is an indication, and what the National Register is about is, do these resources have the ability to convey the stories of our culture that are important to our culture?
Okay. Thank you for that. Anyone else? A question for either the proponent or any of our other speakers?
I do.
Sure, Robert.
Yeah, I'm a little confused about this. You know, in 2010 and 11, the pipe plant was renovated or taken apart, put back up. How did that go into your report?
Sure. I reviewed all of the design drawings, the construction drawings, as
I'm sorry, the pipe, the original? Or
well, both actually. I went back to the Kingston Urban Renewal Archives and looked at the original construction drawings and specifications. And then I also looked at the plans that were prepared for the 2009 to 2013 restoration or renovation of the plan. And I also did visual survey, so I looked to see what's there again, so the columns and everyone can agree those are the most visible features that remain the same, even though some of the lines have changed. And some of the materials are the same, even though they may have been switched out. It's not uncommon for historic properties to change over time and for materials to be replaced or to be lost. I just worked on a major rehabilitation project on a very notable building in New York City that had lost its dome for 30 years. It was still a landmark, even though it had lost a very character-defining feature. We'll put it back. So you can always put things back. That's called restoration. And that's possible when building or property or structure is historic. So as Wally said, I would reiterate, you might not like the history of urban renewal, but that history had a huge impact on Kingston. And it has to be acknowledged. And it's up to the community to decide how to acknowledge.
Thank you. Is Mr. Perry still here?
I stand up there too.
Sure, if you'd like. That would be a kindness. Your position as the commissioner, the last commissioner of the actual Pike Plant Commission. Do you know what happened to the final records of the commission?
So everything minute-wise are in the city's archives. And if there's something specific that you'd like to know, I can help you with, regarding what?
There was the grant that you mentioned in 2011 that would have given this.
So the federal government, God bless them, essentially provided us with this grant in order to redo Uptown Camp. During that process, in order for the grant to be in place, we also had to have certain things that the state had to require. One of it was to determine if it was historical, and at that time it was not deemed historical. Hence, the design which they came up with, that you see now, was approved and moving forward.
For clarification, why that would not have been determined eligible at that time, because it didn't meet the 50-year rule. In 2016.
Well, we can check that.
Well, that's fine, but in 2016, in the update to the Stockade district, the state says explicitly that it has not been a determination.
So being that hasn't been a determination means it's not in the national registry, so it's not.
Okay, so we have a federal review, we have a state review, we are a local review. They are somewhat different, but I was really curious as to where that came from.
Because that money would have been available if not deemed not historical.
Okay, so we can probably track that federal grant application. Do you think?
Yeah, probably, it was done through the Economic Development Office, so we'll have to look.
If we have trouble finding it, we may reach out to you.
Sure, I don't know if I would have the documentation, but.
You could at least give us some guidance if needed.
Absolutely.
Thank you kindly.
Anything else?
Anything else from any other members of the commission? I really appreciate all of your input. We'll be back in October, and if you will, as Mr. Perry has agreed, if you'd be available in the meantime for us to ask any additional questions, is it best to run everything through you, Ms. Pomodoro?
We'd be held to a public meeting. No.
Okay, so we would have to do that at the next meeting.
We would be willing, if you want to put together a list of questions, we could get answers and we could post it publicly as well, so that addresses that concern.
Okay, thank you. And would you be the point of contact? That would be fine, just answer
Yes,
my question.
I would be point of
Okay, thank you. All right, go.
Okay, so thank you everyone for your time. I know this is going to be a tough decision for everyone. But the history of Kingston didn't stop in the 19th century. We are not a Victorian era Williamstown, Williamsburg. We are the city of Kingston, and you are the city of Kingston. And the Pike Plant Academy is part of a living historic district. It means it doesn't stop. It means history is continuously made. And the Pike Plant tells the story of important events in national, state, and local history, meets your criteria for participation, and therefore we ask that you find it worthy of justice. Thank you.
Thank you.
That has been established. The Pike plant, you guys keep talking about the Pike plant, does not exist anymore.
All right. We have heard these arguments.
Thank you very much.
So, I'm not going to speak this over indefinitely. Okay, so there is a motion on the table that we table pending additional review of public commentary and a consultant's report for us, and that our public hearing be continued until September 30 at 2 p.m. to receive additional written commentary. Do I hear a second? Thank you, Robert. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the roll. Andrea?
Aye.
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 Aye. I agree. Is there any new business for us? All right, then. I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion, do I hear a second? We have that? All right, all in favor? Aye. By acclamation, we stand adjourned. Thank you.